Alrighty, everyone, welcome back to another episode of In Depth with David. This is Red Sox Series Recap number 13, where we are going to be recapping the Red Sox three-game series that just wrapped up yesterday against the Los Angeles Angels. And once again, I'm joined by my co-host, Ricky. Ricky, how are you doing?
Doing all right, just hanging in there. So wisdom teeth tomorrow. So you might see somebody else for a few pods, and then yeah.
Yeah, we're both actually, I mean, I guess I'll just say it from the get-go. There's a little bit of an update with this podcast. Me and Ricky are both getting our wisdom teeth done 1 week apart. So we're going to be acting like a talk show for these next couple of weeks. And we're going to be bringing on guest hosts to substitute to replace us. So who knows? We might get some big names on the podcast as a little hint. Ricky knows who I'm talking about. I don't want to spoil the name of who I'm trying to get on the show. But if we get this person, it'd be pretty amazing. And yeah, you'll see some guests on here, and it'll be the same old show, just with different faces. But yeah, I mean that's in the present or the future. But let's focus on the present. What were your takeaways on the Red Sox series against the Angels here, without bearing the lead, per usual?
Yeah, I think I would just kind of summarize this series in one word. I'd say fun. Honestly, I have to say this series had a lot of really enjoyable moments. And yeah, I think if you're a fan of both teams, there actually were kind of some positives. So even, I don't want to, give the result, but the Angels had some positives in this series. But the Red Sox were really enjoyable. This series, I actually watched, I think most of, if not all three games. So, which was good too, because sometimes with school and things, I missed them, but that was a huge plus. So, I'm glad I was able to catch this entire series because it had some really great moments. So we'll definitely get into those. And yeah, the games, they stayed interesting. So
yeah, I would say that's a good word to sum up the whole three-game series, is it being interesting, also fun. I mean, if you want to put a hashtag in front of fun too, that also works for me. But yeah, I mean, it's a good series. I always love seeing Mike Trout play. I mean, I think he's been the best player in baseball for probably the last decade since he got called up to the Angels, and, Shohei Ohtani, him doing his thing. Would have loved to have seen Albert Pujols play still, but obviously they just released him and now he's with the Dodgers. But I have nothing against the Angels. Yeah, I saw the face. I mean, Pujols on the Dodgers, they're the Brooklyn Nets of the MLB. It's ridiculous. They don't need him, but that's a different story. Game one, the pitching matchup between the Red Sox and the Angels was Nick Pivetta versus Canning. His first name, Griffin Canning. And in the top of the second, we jump ahead a bit. JD Martinez, who is playing left field, I believe he actually played left field in all three games of the series, I want to say. Let me check that. Okay.
1 and 3, from what I remember.
So 2 of the 3. Yeah. So 1 and 3, you're right. So he played left field, giving him a break from just being a DH. And he made a nice sliding catch to retire the side in the second inning. Just nice to see him making defensive plays. I know I've been a little bit hard on him on this podcast for, saying he looks like he's running around in quicksand out there in left field, but it's just positive. It's nice to see yet another Red Sox outfielder making dynamic plays out there and on defense. So that was good to see. And then bottom of the second, the parade gets started for the Red Sox as Hunter Renfroe continues his hot month of May by smashing a 2-run homer to center. I think it went like 436 feet or something like that to make it 2-0 Red Sox. I mean, I just can't say enough good things about Renfroe lately. He's just been on a tear. It's fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree. Renfroe is really, I think out of all the players in the last month, for sure, he's had the biggest turnaround. And it's great to see too, because like we talked about in the last podcast, it's good to see guys later in the rotation hitting better, because it really shows the Red Sox depth this year on offense, that they can put guys at the 7-8 spot like Renfroe that can still be reliable, which is really good, honestly.
Right. And I mean, it just speaks to Chaim Bloom. I mean, whether he predicted this or not, kudos to him for bringing in these players that are not only versatile and can play multiple positions, but these veteran players are having career years. Or not, I wouldn't say career years, but they're overachieving with the Red Sox, and they're really embracing their role and just, doing a heck of a job both at the plate and on the field. So Hunter Renfroe is just one of the players we brought in who's having a great year with us so far. Mm-hmm. But moving on after that, that was really the only scoring for a while. The game kind of turned into a bit of a sneeze fest as both pitchers settled down. Innings 1 through 5, Pivetta was really dominant for the Sox, and then Canning for the Angels settled down after giving up the Renfroe homer as he put in 6 quality innings. And then it looked like the Red Sox might be able to get another run as JD hit one to the warning track in the bottom of the 5th inning, but it ended up getting caught by Taylor Ward and Wright, so nothing came out of that. And then top of the 6th inning, this is where Pivetta ran into a bit of trouble as Ohtani took him deep into the green monster seats, making it 2-1 Red Sox as it was a solo shot. And then after that, in the bottom of the 6th inning, and one of the first of a couple of questionable decisions by Cora in this series, Christian Vasquez got caught stealing to end the inning. Help me understand this. Why are we having Christian Vasquez, our catcher, steal bases? I don't get it.
I mean, it adds again to that base running issue that we harp on all the time, kind of. And Cora too. I think we talked about that too, and like what is his discipline on that? And I guess that shows he's not really thinking entirely with that. So
right, like I think we were both right in the last podcast where we're saying Cora probably isn't caring as much as we are about the base running blunders. And I mean, it shows there. Like, what the heck? Like, I get it. He sent Vasquez to steal bases in past seasons, and Vasquez has some wheels, and I mean, I get the situation, like, catch him off guard and maybe you can steal a bag, but like what the heck are we doing? We're up 1. It's important to keep people on base, and the chances of Vasquez stealing are not that good because he's not as fast as Cora thinks he is, and that's just exactly worst case scenario is what happened right there. So I don't really get it. I would have just been fine with keeping Vasquez on base there. I don't understand why you want to push the envelope, but it is what it is. And then in the top of the 7th, Matt Andriese comes in out of the bullpen to relieve Pivetta after he pitched 6 innings. His final stat line was 6 innings pitched, 4 hits, 2 earned runs, no walks, and 7 strikeouts. So he comes in to relieve Pivetta, jumping ahead a bit, and Pivetta left with being responsible for a runner on. And there was 2nd and 3rd with 1 out for the Angels, and then old friend Jose Iglesias, former player of the Red Sox. I don't know if you remember him, but he used to be the shortstop for us before Bogarts came up. He's now on the Angels, and he ends up doubling one down the left field or the right field line to score 2. And this makes it 3-2 Angels now. So Pivetta gets charged for one of the runs, but Andriese gets charged for the other. Nonetheless, the Angels take lead the first in this ball game. And then bottom of the 7th, Bobby Dahlbeck for the 2nd straight game hits a 2-run homer into the monster seats to make it 4-3 Red Sox. So the Red Sox take the lead right back in the bottom of the 7th, and Dahlbeck just continues on his tear lately. We've been waiting for this all season for him to finally hit homers, and he does it in 2 games in a row. So, I mean, this is just great to see from him.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely.
So Dahlbeck gives us the lead, and then this is something I thought was weird. I don't know if you caught this in the game, but after Dahlbeck hit the homer, the Red Sox faithful called for a curtain call for him. They were chanting his name, going, Bobby, Bobby, and then he came out and waved to the crowd. I thought that was a little ridiculous. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. It was kind of a little bit overkill. I mean, I'm glad, like you just said, and like we've talked about with him, I'm glad he's starting to heat up a bit. Again, with him heating up, that's another guy late in the rotation like Renfroe, where the more offensive productivity, the better. I mean, it just adds more to this already good offense. So, yeah, I think it was a little bit extra, as the kids say, a little extra. But I get it, and it's a big moment for him. So, yeah.
I just thought it was really stupid because this is a guy who struggled all the way up until this point in the season. He's barely batting over 200. So now our standards as Red Sox fans are so low that we're calling for curtain calls for people who are batting like 200. Like, what's next? Jonathan Arouse hits a bunt single and we're going to go, Arouse, Arouse, Arouse. I mean, come on. That was a little ridiculous. I mean, it was a big play. I get what you're saying there, but I don't know. I just kind of internally cringed a little bit at that moment, but I was happy we took the lead. Then after that, top of the 8th inning, Adam Ottavino comes in for the Red Sox. And how did he do in this game 1, Ricky? Do you remember?
Ottavino did pretty well.
He did.
Actually, did he have a 1-2-3 inning?
He did. And the biggest thing to take away from this inning, if you want to take stock in this to the people watching at home, he struck out both Ohtani and Trout.
True. That's what really was impressive about that. We'll talk about him later because the inconsistency kind of carried into this series without going too much into the lead. But yeah, that inning was very impressive stuff from Ottavino. He did look like a closer there, and that was also incredibly helpful because Ohtani obviously had that home run earlier in the game, that solo shot, and he was batting. This whole series, I mean, just to jump forward, he was pretty hot at the plate. So yeah, and obviously Mike Trout is Mike Trout. So yeah, to strike out three of the best batters on that team, I mean, that was that was what you want from Ottavino. So shout out him for that inning.
I mean, is it too soon to call him automatic Ottavino after a dominant inning like that? I think it's too soon. But look, I was jumping out of my seat when I saw him do that.
Yeah, that was awesome.
And who would have guessed? I mean, of course, you can't make this stuff up. Adam Ottavino, the most inconsistent pitcher, not only on the Red Sox, but maybe in the entire MLB. You don't know if he's going to be hot. You don't know if he's going to be cold.
Right.
Strikes out two of the best hitters in the league back to back in Ohtani and Trout. I mean, can't ask for anything better than that. And then Matt Barnes comes in, closes out the Angels in the ninth, and the Red Sox win 4-3 and take game one after a little bit of madness in the final few innings, but nonetheless, Sox take game one, lead the series 1-0, and then we head into game two, where the pitching matchup is Martin Perez versus Dylan Bundy, and it's also Alex Verdugo's birthday. I don't know if you heard that.
Yep.
So,
good for him too.
Right, so we're going to jump right into that. Bottom first, Verdugo hits a solo shot to right field on his birthday to make it 1-0 Red Sox. I mean, is this something you knew about him where he has a lot of pop to him because he already has 5 homers on the year? I think that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I like to see that. I'm glad Verdugo's staying hot. He's being consistent. I really like Verdugo. And I think last year, again, he was one of the only bright spots on that team. So, yeah, I'm glad. And I think I'm assuming he must have been really ecstatic over the birthday home run too. But it was really the start of an overall pretty great game for the offense, which we'll get into. But that kind of got the ball rolling. And I think Verdugo is pretty good with that, hitting deep and just having just fun home runs. Like when that guy had that sign that said like Verdugo hit to me or whatever, and he hit it to him. And obviously the Minnesota, we always talk about that series for some reason, but the Minnesota series, he's good with that, having that pop to him. And I think he's a really like showy player, but in like a fun way, not like an excessive way where you're like, okay, this is a bit much, but.
Right. I mean, I will end the time. We talk about this. We'll probably talk about this whenever we do this podcast and talk about Verdugo, but you can't talk about Verdugo without mentioning Mookie. And I will say I will never understand the Mookie Betts trade unless maybe he didn't want to stay here or whatever. But Verdugo is really growing on me. He had a great year last year, and obviously this year he's off to a hot start again. So I think I would rather have no one else be Mookie's replacement than Verdugo because he's done an excellent job so far because we put him in center, we put him in left, we put him in right. Obviously, he can show he can hit at the plate, not only for average, but for power. So, look, I'm happy with the trade now. Like, I'm at peace with it. I think it's still a mistake to give away Mookie, maybe the most talented player in Red Sox history. But, look, Verdugo's a great player, and he's gonna be great in Boston as long as we keep him. So, after that, bottom of the fourth, we jump ahead a bit. Bobby Dahlback continues his little hot stretch as he hits one off the wall just out of the reach of Justin Upton and left. And he ends up doubling. So Bogarts and Devers score because they were on base. So this makes it 3-0 Red Sox. And then Franchy Cordero finally does something again. I know, yeah. Wow. Just a shock talking about him in these highlights. I feel like we haven't talked about him in a couple of weeks. But he doubles down the right field line, making it 4-0. And then Bogarts in the fifth inning hits a no-doubter into Lansdowne. I mean, holy cow. Like this homer is a moonshot. Just cleared the monster, went straight into the highway. 2 people were on, so it was a 3-run shot, and that made it 7-0. And then after that, Bundy's day was done for the Angels. He went only 4 innings, gave up 8 hits, 7 earned runs, 2 walks, and 3 strikeouts. But just offensive onslaught, and this just speaks to how strong our offense is because for what seems like the nth time this year, the Red Sox offense gets to a pitcher early. So it's just great to see. Yeah,
they really did kill Bundy's momentum. I mean, just the yeah, they went in, and I think we talked about that too. How his ERA was, I think it was about like a 6-ish this season. So
Yeah, he coming in, I think he was like 0-4 with like a 6 ERA or something like that.
so the Sox really took advantage of that too, which is also a plus. I know that that was something at least I really wanted to see was with these guys on the Angels that are kind of struggling this year because I know a lot of their pitching staff has been struggling. It was good for the Sox to really get to him early, exactly like you said. The Sox are just continuing that, and that's a really good trend to see. Whether it's a so-so pitcher or a really great ace tier pitcher, it's always good to get a ton of runs early off a pitcher who's struggling. So the Sox, yeah, they've been great with that, and that's again ties into too where I said like I thought the series was really fun. Like this game, just guys like Franchi were hitting. Verdugo had the home run on his birthday. There were a lot of moments like, wow, that was cool. Like especially the Dahlback and Franchi getting doubles because obviously those guys have had their struggles. So that was really encouraging to see for sure in this inning.
Definitely. And after Bundy was done, Mike Trout, in one of his few highlights of the series, makes a nice running catch to take a hit away from Christian Vasquez to prevent any further damage in the 5th inning. And then in the bottom of the 6th, Franchi Cordero gets another highlight as he hits another ball like almost the exact same way he hit his first double down the right field line. And it's the same result. He doubles again. Bobby Dahlback's the one to score again. And the Red Sox make the score go from 7-0 to 8-0. And then bottom of the 7th inning, Rafael Devers homers to right to make it 9-0 Red Sox. And then it was pretty much over after that.
Yeah.
Felipe Valdez, Darwin Hernandez, and Austin Bryce took care of the final 3 innings out of the pen for the Red Sox. And the Sox win 9-0 and take the series after taking the first 2 games. And the final stat line for Perez was 6 innings pitched, 3 hits, no earned runs, 4 walks, and 5 strikeouts. So not too much to complain from him there. I mean, just good outing from Perez.
Yeah, I would definitely say that. I almost argue this is probably the best Perez start this year so far, honestly. I was kind of shocked because I think when we talked about the series too, I know you said I think you suggested the sweep, but you said just to be interesting, but you said, and I said too, that Perez would probably be the game they would lose. So if they lost a game. So yeah, I think it was really awesome to see that. So I think it was his first win of the year too. So
I'm surprised. I think this was even his longest start too. I don't think he's gone more than 5 innings in a start. So for him to go 6 is really good. We need that out of him because, as we said, the longer the starting pitchers for the Sox can stay in the game, the better because their bullpen is just not as strong. I mean, when your best guy is Adam Ottavino, he can't carry everyone else. It's tough.
Exactly.
So, Game 3, final game of the series, jumping into this, was the pitching matchup was Nate Eovaldi versus Jose Quintana of the Angels. And top of the 2nd, this is Nate Eovaldi's really bad inning, and this is a big reason as to how the game was dictated. So Jared Walsh of the Angels hits one in the right field corner. Rendon goes to third, so now they're 2nd and 3rd for the Angels, and then Taylor Ward singles to right. This scores Anthony Rendon, making it 1-0 LA. And then Philip Gosselin, the left fielder for the Angels. I believe he's the left fielder. Yeah, he is. He ends up looping one into the right corner. Walsh scores. Ward goes to third. This makes it 2-0 Angels. And then with 2nd and 3rd, Drew Butera, the catcher for the Los Angeles Angels, hits a soft 2-run single to left to make it 4-0. So just like that, Red Sox already dug themselves deep in a hole. It seems like this is a theme where Eovaldi is for the most part good, but he seems to have these innings where he struggles and starts where he gives up, a few runs here and there, but then he's able to settle down. He's kind of been scuffling a bit in his last few starts, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Is this something you're as concerned about as me? Because this should have been a slam dunk start for him, in my opinion. I'm sure you agree with that against the Angels.
Yeah.
So for him to struggle, do you take too much stock in this?
I'm starting to actually, like you. I think it's starting to get a little bit concerning with Eovaldi. Like you said too, especially that one bad inning, and then he's pretty consistent. I think, yeah, that's definitely something that's, and it's pretty alarming sometimes because it's more runs. Like he gave up 4 in that inning. I mean, that was tough. So Yeah, I think with Nate Eovaldi, I'm starting to worry a little bit. I'm not fully concerned. Like I think Eovaldi's in a rut, but the last few starts have been kind of rough. And like you said too, this was a slam dunk game. I mean, Quintana's had about, I believe, a 9 ERA
Yeah.
from what we talked about at the end of last series. So again, that another guy like Bundy, where he had such a high ERA, I was expecting, okay, Sox come in, take advantage of that, and Evaldi should have a nice, easy time closing the series out. But yeah, it is a little bit concerning, especially considering too some of the pitches he was throwing and just how off they were. And I don't know, I'm hoping he fixes that 1 inning struggle kind of trend that he's been going down. So.
Do you think his ERA, looking at that, is overrated? Because it's still over 4 at this point of the season at 4.25. Do you worry too much about that as well? Because I'm going to be honest, that's kind of concerning to me. I don't want his ERA over 4 either. So
Yeah.
I think that's a point of concern for me as well.
Yeah, I would definitely agree, especially considering us and most people build like Nate Eovaldi as like probably like the marquee guy of the 2021 season. So I think we can almost, especially after this series, kind of pass that torch on to Pivetta thus far, I'd say, as like being like the guy to really go out there and give consistent performances. But yeah, I think Evaldi's ERA is definitely telling. Yeah, that's not great for somebody like him who honestly could throw a lot better than that. So
I'd say out of all the pitchers on the Red Sox right now, probably the one I trust the most I'd say Pivetta. It's kind of close between Pivetta and Erod, but I'd say Pivetta or Erod and then Evaldi third at this point.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll change. I would say at the beginning of the year it was Evaldi, then Pivetta, then Erod, but it's kind of shifting because Evaldi's just been looking concerning in the last few starts. But hopefully that changes course. And then in the top of third, Bobby Dahlbeck had a nice play at first as he made a nice sliding catch for Tyler Walsh on the Angels. And then Red Sox finally were able to get a run on the board as bottom of the third with first and second. Jonathan Arouse, of all people, hits a double down the left field line. Marwin Gonzalez scores, making it 4-1. And then Kevin Plawecki thought about scoring, but then he ended up turning around and going back to third as Carlos Fables, the third base coach, initially waved him around but told him to stop. And this is another controversial play because I'm going to be honest, I think this was a bad move by not only Kevin Plawecki, but also a mistake by the third base coach, Carlos Fables. And I think they both could have easily scored on this play, and it should have been 4-2 at this point. Did you think the same thing, or do you think they made the right call keeping Plawecki at third?
Not the best call, honestly.
I just think, I think Plawecki could have made it if he kept on going, and this goes back to the whole base running. It wasn't a blunder because Plawecki didn't run into an out, but I think that would have been a calculated risk to just send him there. And I mean, we have nothing to lose. We're down 4-1. It's still early in the game. Like, why not send him? So that's just how I look at it. But Arouse is able to get us on the board with an RBI double. And then top of the fifth, Jared Walsh of the Angels hits one off of the wall. And Ohtani tried to score from first on this play, but JD had a perfect throw all the way from left to nail Ohtani at the plate. And it wasn't even close as Ohtani was waiting, or the throw was waiting for Ohtani. So, I guess I mean, if we want to do an apology cam on me, I guess I'll apologize for saying JD was not the best outfielder. I'm eating my words a bit. He had a couple nice plays in this series, so hats off to him. I mean, when it comes to interleague play, I think we can rely on him to play left field at a good level. So, just happy about that. Yep.
In Arizona, right, when he was with the D-backs, I'm pretty sure he was in left a lot. So it's good. He's had that experience too. I definitely agree too with like the interleague. He is definitely the go-to, I'd say. So.
Yeah, and I forgot about that too, where he was with Arizona, and that wasn't even that many years ago. That was like 4 years ago, and he's only like 32 or whatever. So, he can still play at a decent level. And then bottom of the fifth inning, Kevin Plawecki gets us another run on the board as he hits a homer out of the park into Lansdowne Street to make it 4-2. This is a solo shot. And the best part about Kevin Plawecki hitting the homer is he finally got to be a part of his own celebration that he created with the cart.
Yep.
So I thought that was fun to see. I mean, we had all been waiting for that all year because he hadn't hit a home run up until this point. But I think it was Devers who was the one who was pushing him in the card. I think that was cool. And it's just good for team camaraderie. So that was good to see. And then speaking of Devers, later in the inning with 2 on, Devers belts a 3-run home run to right to give the Sox their first lead of the game, making it 5-4 after initially trailing 4-0. Devers' second home run of the series, second in as many days. I mean, talk about a guy who's, I think, been underrated lately in Devers. I mean, he's been putting up great numbers lately, but he hasn't been talked about much. He's just doing his thing, and it's great to see.
Yeah, I totally agree. Devers is he just continues to be great at the bat, and defensively he's been hanging in there. So yeah, it's good. He's had a pretty consistent season, so I'm glad he's doing well still.
And he's kind of doing better at third. I mean, he's making the routine plays when we need him to, so I can't complain about that either. And then in the 8th inning, our guy, Adam Ottavino, comes in. And how did Adam Ottavino do in this game?
Rough. As I noted earlier, too, he had such a solid inning back in that first game, but this was a really rough inning. So bad they actually had to pull him and put in Matt Barnes in the 8th with 1 out left. So, that gave Matt Barnes a few extra pitches, and we'll talk about the 9th too, because that was another really rough inning. But Ottavino really struggled here with giving up walks and really getting the bases filled, and he just did not. He pitched really out of it. I'm just baffled by the inconsistency of Ottavino. It's like you said, like one game you'll get a lights out performance from him, and then one game he'll do this. So I don't know. It was tough because they could have had that win. It was there. It was in the writing after that Devers.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, it's the 8th. Sorry about that, but yeah,
no, you're good. I mean, yeah. If you're watching this podcast, maybe some people are watching this and they don't already know the result of the series, but let's be real. Social media is just an animal at this point, so you probably heard one way or another what happened. But
right. And anyways, I didn't too how the win happened for the Angels. We'll get into that because that was rough too.
Yeah. So going back to Ottavino, I just why does Cora do this? We keep talking about the situation. It's like the Twilight Zone with Cora. 1-run game, whether we're losing or whether we're winning by 1. What does Cora do? Let's throw in Ottavino. I would rather throw in Sawamura, even though Sawamura struggled lately.
Yeah, I'd agree. Somebody like that, maybe even Philippe's, like somebody else.
Valdez has actually been good lately too, which is weird.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I just don't get it because it's a 1-run game, and why does Cora think that he can pitch his way out of this? Again, you need to treat Adam like a kid, where he earns the privilege again to pitch the 8th. How do you do that? You demote him by letting him pitch the 7th or the 6th, like they did that one game. You have to he needs to earn his trust back. He can't just pitch his way out of this because that's dangerous, right? It can go any way possible, and it can end up costing us games. And that's what almost happened here is Ottavino struggles in the 8th once again. It seems like that's a theme this season. And he puts 2 runners on base. And then, as you said, Matt Barnes comes in, and his job is to get the last 4 outs of the game. And this is the second time in about a week that he's had to do this. I think last series he had to get a 5-out save we talked about, and today in this game he's going for a 4-out save. But are you against bringing in Barnes in the 8th, or do you not really mind? Because I don't really care if he needs to get 1 more out in the 8th and then he pitches the rest of the 9th. But if you're having him pitch the last 2 innings, I think that's going to be an issue. Yeah,
I agree. I think for 1 out in the 8th, they put him in for, that's fine. Or to get the last 5 outs like that past series too. But yeah, to have him pitch 2 full innings or even a little more than that, I think is a little bit much, considering he's pretty much the closer. So you don't want to have him pitch too many innings because you need him for other situations soon.
So that's what Barnes just did as he came into the 8th, and he struck out Gosselin to end the inning. And then top of the 9th, do you want to go over the 9th inning here? Because it's going to pain me to talk about it. This, as you said, was rough. If you want to talk about what happened in this inning.
Yeah, so this inning was rough for Barnes, but it was also rough defensively for Marwin Gonzalez in particular. So in the top of the 9th, Barnes did a pretty decent job hanging in there. But then I believe Mike Trout had a hit towards right, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yep.
A cluster of guys that were running for it. Renfro, I believe Verdugo, I think JD was even trotting over. And Marwin Gonzalez kind of went into the mix and almost dove for the ball, and Trout's ball kind of plopped right between where all of them were. So that allowed Trout to get on base, which is not good considering Ohtani was due next. And then continuing his hot streak and just being an amazing hitter, Ohtani blasts a home run and brings in him and Mike Trout, who was already on first. And that was just tough because they could have got Trout out, if they played that right defensively. And I think that jumble of guys and Marwin diving for it just really was unnecessary. And because Marwin dove and because they had to run over, it gave Trout enough time to get to first. If they were on top of things and ready, that would have been an easy out, and the Sox pretty much would have secured the win. So, I mean, it made Matt Barnes look like a complete fool. I mean, that was just a rough inning to watch. And I almost couldn't believe it for a second. I was like, oh my God, what were they thinking with that? So yeah, that was a tough inning of a game that was really back and forth. That really sealed it for the Angels. So shout out to Ohtani for being a consistent hitter, but that was crazy. So
yeah, so top 9, as Ricky said, Angels were actually down to their last out, and Trout, who did not have a hit in the series up until this point.
Right. It's 0 for 18, I think, before that.
Yep, he bloops one into right, and they were in the shift here. And Chavis dives for it, because I think Chavis was playing second. Let me just check the line. Yeah, Chavis was at second, so he was running over. Marwin was in right, so they had him playing the outfield in this game, and then Renfro was in center. They all went for it. Chavis was the one who dived for it, but it was out of his reach, and then Marwin threw the ball back in. If we weren't in the shift, we probably wouldn't have made the play there. But the fact Chavis had to run a little bit longer, a little bit farther distance to make the play, that's kind of what costed us here, and that's what allowed Trout to get on base. What are your thoughts on the shift? We talked about this before, shifts in baseball. I think we talked about this in the first podcast we did, but do you think shifts are good for baseball? Do you think it's kind of a cheap way to play baseball on the defensive side? How do you feel about them?
I'm not sure, honestly, because I wasn't entirely too hot on the fact that Renfro wasn't in right per his usual spot. So I don't know how how to feel about shifts in particular. But
I'm fine with shifts in general in baseball. It's been a part of the game for decades at this point, and it's just a way to take advantage of situations. They did it against Ortiz all the time. He'd have so many hits that you think would go into left field or right field, but they put the second baseman into short right field so he could, make the play and retire Ortiz. So I respect it. It's a part of the game. You live by the shift, you die by the shift as a hitter or as a defensive player. But in this situation, do you think it's a little ridiculous? Because I think it was kind of stupid that they put the shift on Trout here because he didn't get a hit up until this point. Why are we putting the shift on him? I didn't get that. So do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think that was kind of, especially considering too, because he had that cold streak. Yeah, it just doesn't make sense. Maybe if say it was the Trout, they did get him out and it was the second out, and then Ohtani was up instead of Trout, I might understand the shift a little bit more just because he's been hitting hot. But even I don't know. That was just not a really great idea to execute. So
yeah, I mean, I'm willing to take my chances. Like people say, you always shift no matter how cold a hitter is doing. But Trout was 0 for 18 or whatever, as you said, and I'm just willing to take my chances just doing regular defensive positions. And Chavis, if that was the case, I mean, you can't predict where a hit's going to go, but Chavis would have been able to run over easily and make that play in that game. But nonetheless, Trout is able to get on base with his first hit of the series as it was a bloop single. And then Shohei Ohtani, as you said, comes up, crushes one into the corner and right with 2 outs, 2-run homer, gives the Angels the lead 6-5. Barnes blows his first save of the year. Why didn't we intentionally walk Shohei Ohtani there?
Yeah. Honestly,
that's the worst mistake of the season by Cora.
I think so. That would have saved them, honestly.
because, like, yeah, you have runners on first and second, but who? Let me check who is batting after Anthony Rendon, who had no hits in the game. He finished 0 for 4. Why didn't we pitch to him? Like, what the heck? I don't know what Cora was thinking there. Maybe he was just thinking, like, let's get this game over. Oh, wait, Shohei Ohtani's at the plate, and he's one of the best players in baseball. So that was a mistake, and the Red Sox paid dearly for it. Obviously, the pitch wasn't the greatest from Barnes, but it wasn't the best decision by Cora, so I guess you can kind of blame both of them for it. Just not a good inning for Cora from a managerial position. And then bottom 9, Red Sox have runners on first and third, or first and second. They make a little bit of noise, but Chavis ends up striking out. So the Angels win 6-5. They take the series salvaging victory, but the Red Sox do end up taking 2 of 3. So, a little bit of a silver lining. Should have had the sweep. Maybe I jinxed us by saying we were going to sweep them and we were down at the final out, but I'll take the series victory. And going back to that Trout play, do you think if Renfroe wasn't right, he would have made that play? Because I think so.
I think so, too. Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, too, with the shift thing, too, like if Renfroe was in his normal spot, I think it would have just been an easy out and game would have been done. So,
yeah, I agree with that. It's a difficult situation because if you're going to keep Marwin in the game, do you switch Marwin for center and then put Renfroe in right? Because Marwin can't play center, so you're kind of playing with fire in a situation like that. But I think for 3 outs, I would have just taken the risk and put Marwin in center, put Renfroe in right. But it is what it is. And then, yeah, that was the series. Red Sox lose in heartbreaking fashion in Game 3 of the series, but they do take 2 of 3. Who are your Red Sox players of the series?
For the Sox players of the series, I'm going to give my number 1, I'll give to Rafael Devers, just for his continued hitting, a couple home runs. I believe he had 2 this series.
He did. Games 2 and 3.
Yep. So back-to-back games with home runs. Defense, you didn't hear much from him, which is a good thing because he did what he needed to do. I feel like he was always getting on base. He looked really good. This was a really good series, and he's been, like we talked about and we have talked about, he's just been consistently solid, and that's what you want from Devers. I actually think he's really turned it around since the beginning of the year when he was really struggling kind of offensively and defensively. If I remember correctly, too, he was kind of slumping hitting-wise, too, at the beginning of the year, and then he turned it around, I think, in the 3rd series against the O's, really. So,
yep.
Yeah, so it's good. For him, I think I'd have his number 1. And number 2, I was kind of torn between who to put because Dahlback had made some noise offensively, but I actually think I'm going to give the number 2 to JD just because, as we talked about, he actually had some nice defensive plays in the outfield. Obviously, getting out Ohtani on that lob to home, which was nice. That the quickness and his arm, being able to throw that far, that's obviously helpful. And yeah, he had that other kind of sliding-ish catch, and he just hung in there, which was good. I mean, 2 or 3 games they had him out there, and he hit pretty decently well this series too, getting on base a lot. So yeah, I'm glad JD Martinez is kind of still not really just like a one-trick pony. Like I feel like he seems a lot more invested. And that's good to see on the outfield efforts too. He actually looked alive out there. So shout out Drake. So and then for pitchers, I'm actually going to give the pitcher of this series I'm just going to be different and just give it to Perez because I think this is the best we've seen Perez this year. 6 innings, 5 strikeouts, no runs allowed, couple hits. Not horrible. Pivetta obviously had a really good performance as well, 7 strikeouts and did his thing in that first game. But Martin Perez actually looked pretty solid for being the I believe the 5 right guy. So,
yep.
I mean, he did what he needed to do. And then I think for reliever, I'm going to give reliever to Felipe Valdez because I think he's, as you mentioned too, he's been improving as of late. And, Carabas's list, obviously, that we've referenced to and that we talk about are pitchers we trust, relievers we trust, and relievers we are on the fence and we don't trust. I'm kind of on the verge of putting Felipe's in my relievers I trust category. So that's really all I got. So,
yeah, for the Red Sox, number 1 player of the series, I had Devers with homers in the games 2 and 3. Solid defense. I mean, nothing flashy, but nothing flashy by Devers is amazing to me considering his defensive abilities. So it's just good to see there at the hot corner. And then I think he had a hit in all 3 games of the series, so that's encouraging to see. I put JD as an honorable mention, number 2, because of his good plays on defense, and I think he got a couple hits too. So love to see that. Bogart's number 3 for his performance in Game 2 of the series with 2 hits, including a 3-run shot over the Green Monster into Lansdowne Street. But honorable mention for him because he did go non-existent in Game 3 of the series as the DH went 0 for 3. So just need more from him there. And then Franchi Cordero and Bobby Dahlbeck had great series. Obviously, Bobby had the homer that ultimately won us the game in Game 1, and he had a 2-run double, I think, in Game 2 off the wall. And then he had a nice defensive play as well. And then Franchi Cordero with back-to-back RBI doubles down the right field line to score Bobby Dahlbeck in that second game. Really encouraging, but he did nothing else other than that. I think he only played in that one game. So that's all good to see. And then Perez also was my pitcher of the series. As you said, I think that's a great way to sum it up, where this was the best we've seen Perez all year. 6 shutout innings. I mean, you can't ask for much more from him. Just a great outing. So it's good to see from all those Sox players. How about for the Angels? I feel like this one's kind of obvious, but how about for LA?
So for my number 1 player, I have Shohei Ohtani. Ohtani is one of my favorite players in baseball. His versatility, being able to pitch and hit with as much power as he hits, he's just such a fun player to watch. And this series really, the Angels' offense was not that great. They did all right in Game 3 and so in Game 1, but Game 2 they were obviously non-existent. But Ohtani just held down the fort, honestly. I mean, he was able to homer off Pivetta in Game 1, and he homered off Matt Barnes, who is actually a legit closer, as we've talked about. Matt Barnes is pretty hard to hit off of this year, so Ohtani just made it look easy, made it look like light work, and his speed as well, running. Obviously, he did have that, JD when he threw to home and Ohtani got out there where he could have stayed at third. He kind of made a dumb mistake there, but his speed is also a plus too, where if you watch him run the bases too, he's super fast, super speedy on his feet. And then I think for my number 2 player, it's kind of tough because the Angels didn't have a ton of standout players this series, but I'm going to actually give it to Rendon, just because I think he had a couple nice defensive plays. He's just kind of a solid veteran presence on that team. And, he had a couple nice defensive plays. And he made a little noise there, but he wasn't great. He was obviously, as you mentioned, in Game 3, I think 0 for 4. So he wasn't the best at the bat, but he was all right defensively. And I'm not really sure who else I'd give it to. And then for pitching, I forget, who did the Angels have for their first game?
It was Canning.
Canning, yeah.
Griffin Canning.
I would give it to Canning just because I think he hung in there. And obviously Bundy was horrible in Game 2. And in Game 3, Quintana struggled a bit too. And I've actually seen, I kind of was following some like Angel and Red Sox kind of interactions and a lot of Angels fans are really saying we need better pitching. Because so we could talk about that maybe as like a topic when we're done with the players as like kind of a thing, but that's definitely for pitching. It was definitely kind of tough, and in terms of relievers, it's really tough for me to think of somebody who really stood out for the Angels. So
yeah, so for the Angels players of the series, I had, lo and behold, Ohtani as my number 1. Had the homer in Game 1, homer in Game 3. Really, as you said, was the reason why they were in it. They were in it for so long in those 2 games, and just would you say he's one of the most fun players to watch in baseball? I'd say he might be the most fun to watch. I mean, he can pitch, he can play the outfield, he can hit. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, absolutely, he's very talented guy.
Yeah, I mean, I'd put him up there with like Mookie, Trout, Tatis. I mean, Ohtani's right up there. All great players, fun players to watch in the game. And then second star, I had Gosselin, the left fielder, because in Games 2 and 3, he had multi-hit games, nothing to slouch about. If you can get on base, you can get on base, and that's nothing to frown upon. So he put together a couple good outings. And then for the pitcher, I also had Canning. put together 6 innings where he only gave up 2 earned runs and got 7 strikeouts, and pretty good start out of him. And after he gave up that homer to Renfroe in game 1, he was really able to settle down. And then, so after that, I just had a question to broach. Unless you want to talk about the pitching thing that you wanted to talk about at the Red Sox.
Just briefly. I kind of been like following a lot of like Angel and just like Red Sox kind of fan interactions on Twitter and different sites and Angel like media sites too. And something I've been seeing too is that they feel like they're spending a lot on hitters, which they do have some really good hitters, as we talked about. Obviously, Ohtani and Mike Trout are a really good 1-2 punch and elite tier guys, and they have a pretty good selection of guys offensively that can really produce. But pitching wise, they've had struggles. So they're kind of in a similar boat as the Red Sox, although the Red Sox pitching is surprisingly holding up this year. But yeah, I just kind of been noticing that, and you can tell too from the ERAs of Quintana and Bundy that pitching has really been a struggle for the Angels, and I think it's what's costing them a lot of games. So yeah, I'm thinking that might be a trade deadline thing for them. I don't know, just something observational. So
yeah, if they have a chance to, because the Red Sox also are another team like the Angels who struggle at the pitching position. But we're in a lot better position than Anaheim is because we have a lot of people who are either already MLB-ready starters and a Pivetta and an Eovaldi. You could even throw, a Perez in there. And we have people who are close to being ready, like a Seabold in the minors. Tanner Hawks made a couple starts for us. He's done okay. So I don't see that for any of the players on the Angels. Obviously, Ohtani can pitch, but he's only one person. And they had Garrett Richards. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, I get why they got rid of Garrett Richards because, he was subpar to below average for them in his career. I think his ERA is hovering around 4 for his career with the Angels and like his first 6 seasons spent with them. He's only made the playoffs once in his career, and he's been with the Angels for almost 10 seasons now. So you want to change something there. And obviously you want to make the most of having both him and Ohtani playing at a high level. So that'll be something to monitor for sure. So a couple things I want to talk about before we wrap this up. Red Sox are going to have some decisions to make with the roster coming up soon because Kike Hernandez is going to be ready to come back. And it looks like the obvious decision with that would be option back to AAA utility infielder Jonathan Arauz. I think that's just a given that that'll probably happen.
Right.
But Christian Arroyo is also injured after getting hit with a pitch, and he's going to be coming back in roughly a week.
Right.
What do you do there? Because there's also another situation where not only Christian Arroyo is going to be ready, but another guy the Red Sox have in the minors, Danny Santana, who just crushed 28 homers for the Rangers a couple of years ago. Once we get him at bats in AAA, he's also going to be ready to come up. And then you have someone like Chavis, who, since he's been playing for us, hasn't been too flashy. I think he's been like 280, as you said, but he has a homer. He has a couple doubles. He has a lot of good energy. So you have a lot of weird situations here where obviously Kike is going to be on the team again when he returns from his rehab at Worcester, because you don't pay someone, unless their name's Rusney Castillo, you don't pay someone $7 million just to play in the minors. So Kike will be back on the team. But what do you do there with that roster crunch? Because Arroyo and Danny Santana are ready, but Chavis is also performing at a decent, at a good level up here at the major league level. So what do you do there? This is a tough decision for the Red Sox, I think.
They could possibly substitute Santana for Cordero.
That's another. I forgot to mention Cordero, so that would also be send him down to Worcester.
I think that would work for Franchi because he just has not been great. And I think Santana will get a kind of more of an alternating chance, kind of like a prove thing. So I think that would, and if he again on those chances plays really well, they can find a way to work him in more. But yeah, I think out of everybody, obviously Arauz is going to get knocked back down. But I would see Cordero going back down to Worcester, or going to Worcester, my bad, to bring up Santana. So
I would like that the most out of all the potential options. I think there's a chance they might just send Chavis back down again, which I'd be really frustrated with. I mean, obviously, both of us, as part of the In Depth with David podcast, are rooting for him with the Chavis watch. And
Right.
he's answered the bell so far. I think he's done well in all the games, whether it be in the field or hitting wise or just getting everyone amped up. I mean, even though Cordero had a good game Saturday, I feel like it'd just be a no-brainer to send him down and give him some at-bats down there to maybe, get his discipline back or get him to, regain some confidence. So, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind doing that when Arroyo and Santana are able to be called up. That's the option I'd most likely want to go with if I was Hein Bloom. But we'll see what happens there. And then right before we close up things here, let's just preview the series against the Blue Jays. How do you think it's going to go? So it's a 3-game set starting tomorrow. Erod's going to go game 1. Game 2 is going to be Garrett Richards versus Ross Stripling, who has a 0-2 record, 5.91 ERA. And then the final game is Nick Pivetta versus Steven Matz, who's 5-2 with a 4.29 ERA. So how do you think this series against the Blue Jays is going to go? They're second in the AL East, I believe. They have a 22-17 record heading into this series.
This is tough because the Blue Jays are playing really well. And I know the Sox split with them because they only played a 2-game set last time they played. I don't want to say the Red Sox lose this series, but it might be a tough series, is all I will say, is because I don't want to say the Sox lose 2 of 3. I think if this were a 4-game set, I would definitely go with a split. I'm going to say 2 of 3 for the Sox because their momentum in that Angels series was pretty solid. And even that one game they lost, they only lost by a run and they hung in there. Obviously, when Devers hit that home run, it actually gave them the lead when they were down. And they're pretty good with comebacks and hanging in there. I think it's really going to be depend. I think their potential 2 wins out of the 3 would really depend on the pitching performances. We'll really have to see. I know Erod's been decent. I know Garrett Richards has definitely shown signs of improvement. I forget who you said the third pitcher was. I think Pivetta, right?
Pivetta, yep.
So I think the Pivetta game they will probably win because I think Pivetta's been pretty consistent. And game 2, I believe they have the Jays have Stripling on the mound, so I think they could take advantage of him. He's got a higher ERA and a losing record. But game 1, that Erod game, for whatever reason, I have a feeling they might lose that game. If I'm being honest, but I don't know. So yeah, I don't know what you think about it, but I feel like I definitely don't see a sweep because the Blue Jays are playing really well. But I don't see a loss really either. So
yeah, this one is going to be a tough one to predict. I think I could see us winning the Erod start, just going back to, history with him being on the mound. We always seem to do well with him. We've won like almost 40 games with him on the mound since 2019. Get him a lot of run support. I think we'll take game 1. I'm still waiting for Garrett Richards to have that, struggling start. I'm not like praying on it happening because I obviously am a Red Sox fan and I hope Garrett Richards does well, but it seemed like this little stretch is maybe a bit too good to be true. So he's going to have a scuffling start at some point. Maybe it's here. I'm going to say it is. So I think we lose game 2. And then Pivetta versus Matz. I think we'll win. I think we'll win 2 out of 3. So we'll win the rubber match in game 3 with Pivetta on the mound. I'm just looking at the stats. Opponents are hitting 189 against him this season. Pavetta's allowed 2 earned runs or fewer in 6 of his 8 starts. I mean, I think that's going to continue against the Jays. And Steven Matz, it says here he's allowed 17 runs after in his past 4 outings. So, maybe we can get to him in some instance, but I think that could be like a pitcher's duel, that game 3. But
yeah,
I'm going to pick the Sox. I think we'll win 2 out of 3 here. And I think that'll be good because these division games are important. So I'm going to pick the Red Sox. So that's going to do it for this recap, unless you have anything else you want to talk about. I think we covered a lot.
Any last point? Wasn't his abysmal performance against the Jays?
It was, yeah, because that 2-game set, it was the second game. That's right.
We'll have to see too with him if that strong batting rotation Toronto's pretty solid bats get to him again, because I know that game was rough, and he gave up a lot of runs. So yeah, we really got to see with him. But again, like to have a kind of a redemption win against the team he played horribly against. Shout out my quarantine period. Would be great to see. So yeah, but yeah, that's my last little notation on that. So
yeah, because I remember, Blue Jays lineup. I mean, geez, Bo Bichette, Vlad Guerrero, Craig Biggio, Cavan Biggio. Craig Biggio's the legend. It's his son, but they have a great lineup, so it'll be a good series. I think the Red Sox versus the Jays, we match up well against them offensively, and I think we can hold our own against them. But that is going to do it for this recap. Red Sox wrap up the series against the Angels. They had an off day today as they travel to Dunedin Park, Florida, to face the Toronto Blue Jays in a 3-game set starting tomorrow. Let me just remind everyone to hit that like button, absorb that subscribe button. Tell us in the comments below what you like, what you didn't like, what you like about us, what you didn't like about us. That last part always gets you. That's just a reminder. We have Bruins recaps coming. Again, there will be another one tomorrow night with my cousin Brian. We did one last night. You should go check that one out. More of these Red Sox recaps will be coming, but we'll be rotating in and out guests in these next few because obviously me and Ricky are undergoing certain surgical procedures. So just stay on the loop for that. Celtics recaps are coming for as long as they'll be in the season still. I'm doing a play-in recap and then do off-season updates for all the sports. Patriots as well. Reality TV recaps will be coming in the summer once Big Brother comes back, and in the fall when Survivor comes back as well. So look forward to that. And then personal interviews will be coming as well in some capacity, maybe once a week or whatever. But more shows are coming to this podcast, so exciting times are ahead. That's going to do it for this episode of In Depth with David. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Thank you again, Ricky, for joining me. And we will be talking to you guys soon after the Red Sox versus the Blue Jays series. All right, everyone. Have a good one. Take care.